Welcome to Rowdy Rants. Thank you for coming. I'm Rowdy Taylor. We're going to be doing a little chat about the Biden administration's reaction to the Hamas/Israel conflict. And I'm going to define a couple of things there because, as usual, our media and the Biden administration has turned something on its head. Of course, with President Biden being a Democrat, him doing something absolutely ghoulish is not surprising to me. I just hope that it's not as surprising to you either. What has happened is Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, it has been deemed a terrorist organization for a very long time. There was a conflict in Palestine between, in disputed territory, between Israeli forces and civilians. A lot of rock throwing was going on, some removal of people, and Hamas's response was to start firing rockets into Israel at civilians. Indiscriminately firing rockets at civilians. This isn't a battle where they're squaring off with the Israeli military. No, they are firing rockets arbitrarily into populated areas, including Jerusalem. There's nothing that you can come up with that is an excuse for what Hamas is doing. Hamas, by the way, is a predominantly Sunni Muslim organization that took over Gaza Strip in 2006 when they won the election there. And the Fatah government wound up being only in the West Bank. Now, there has not been another election in the Gaza Strip since then. So, take that for whatever you want to call it. But they ruthlessly suppress any kind of government support other than support for Hamas. Take that for what you want. As usual, one of the headlines that I read had it backwards. They make it sound like Israel is striking out at Hamas and Hamas is firing back, which is absolutely backwards. Once again, mainstream media, or you should actually call them mainstain media because they're a stain on the idea of reporting honestly. Because the facts are, as Hamas started firing rockets and the Israelis started targeting intelligence resources and the source of the rocket fire. And of course, people are going to have their family nearby. It's a very small place. We're talking, the Gaza Strip is about 25 miles long and it varies between 4 miles and 7 miles wide. You've got over 2 million people there. It's the third most densely populated place in the world. So you're going to wind up with civilians that are going to get injured when you start shooting at tunnels to collapse them, when you start shooting at the Hamas military resources. And it's unfortunate, but Israel is not targeting civilians, whereas Hamas is blindly firing literally hundreds of rockets into Israel at civilian targets. There's a huge difference here in what is going on. And the Biden administration turns around and, after having already made a statement about it, you can tell that the squad got to Biden, because he comes out after he talks to Netanyahu and oh, there needs to be a ceasefire. A ceasefire? Do you think Hamas is going to do that? They're firing hundreds of rockets per day. This is survival where the Israelis are concerned. And the idea of a ceasefire ended when those numbers of rockets reached hundreds. And mind you, Hamas is the sworn enemy of the state of Israel. They have sworn to the destruction of Israel. So yes, Israel has the right to, and had actually better, strike back when something like this happens. When somebody is sworn to your destruction, you don't order an attack, and you don't broker a ceasefire when people are still shooting at you. First, you eliminate their ability to strike, which is what Israel is doing and what Israel has a right to do. Of course, you listen to the Democrat ghouls on Capitol Hill. It's all about Israel and how they're overreacting. How do you overreact to a rocket attack? Tell me that. These friggin' ghouls in Washington, D.C. turn my stomach. There's no understanding what they're doing except for the fact that they are loathsome creatures who get off on the pain and misery of others. And now they're trying to tell Israel to swallow it and broker a ceasefire as Hamas is firing hundreds of rockets across the buffer zone between the Gaza Strip and Israel. It's insane. The level of insanity here is just incredible. The buffer zone between the Gaza Strip and Israel is varied. It's between 100 meters and 300 meters. 100 meters where farming is concerned, and 300 meters otherwise. That's all the distance there is that separates the Gaza Strip and Israel. So no, this isn't any great distance. And these rockets that Hamas is firing, these aren't fireworks. These are not firework rockets. This is military armament being fired into the country of Israel. And yes, I've been there. I've seen what I'm talking about. I do know. Israel has a right to respond. They have a duty to respond to their people. Do people have a right to live in peace and security? Yes. But when you have a terrorist organization that's committed to your destruction, your own peace and security is what you look out for first. Period. This insanity on the part of the media, on the part of the Biden administration, it's sick. And now it's U.S. policy. So I hope all the little dweebs, Democrats and liberals and leftists are happy. So now I've just, got to wonder how long it's going to be before we have a Palestinian Authority and a Gaza Strip here in the United States. Because I'm quite sure the Biden administration would support it. If Chad or Chaz had popped up under the Biden administration, it'd still be there. You got what you paid for. This is the Biden administration. This is our country now. Lies and deceit. ghoulish behavior. I'm Rowdy. That's my rant. Have a nice day.